Hey, welcome to Live with Lynn. So if you're here, say hi. If you're watching the replay, be sure to type replay so I know you were here. I'm Lynn Huber, and I appreciate you being here today. So today we're going to talk about never let fear and anxiety drive your decisions. So how are you when it comes to decision making? Are you a clear-headed, decisive problem solver? Do you allow your anxiety to drive the decisions you make? Do you allow fear to rule the roost and take over the decision-making process? As it happens, there's a specific mechanism that highlights how anxiety disrupts our ability to make sound decisions. I was reading an article this morning from the University of Pittsburgh, and they say that the decision-making process is a cognitive one, and when faced with a series of options, your brain weighs risks and rewards as well as consequences. But evidence suggests that the cognitive aspect of the decision-making process requires your prefrontal cortex neurons to be functioning properly. So your prefrontal cortex, in terms of evolution, is the newest region of your brain, and it's found right here in the frontal lobe. So the prefrontal cortex has a crucial role to play when it comes to executive functions. It handles long-term planning, calculating risk, reward, and consequences, problem solving, understanding rules, regulating emotions, and of course, decision making. Hi, Erin. Good to see you. Good afternoon. So anxiety disrupts that process. Fear disrupts that process. So then how can you make sound decisions when you're gripped by fear or anxiety? Well, in this study from the University of Pittsburgh, the researchers wanted to identify how fear and anxiety impact the prefrontal cortex during the decision-making process. And so to pinpoint the neurons that were at play, they focused on two groups of rats during the decision-making task. So the rats had to choose a logical choice to receive a reward. The motivating factor behind this research was anxiety that accompanies psychiatric disorders, actually. And anxiety is one of the most debilitating symptoms from any psychiatric disorder, especially like addiction, PTSD, OCD, and MDD. Not sure what that one is, MDD. But so brain imaging studies have shown that anxiety and fear are a big piece of the puzzle to decoding the impact that anxiety and fear have on the prefrontal cortex functions. So one group of rats was anxiety-ridden and the other group were not. And both had the same task, to make a decision that resulted in the reward. And so since this study, the university has since validated those results using both monkeys and humans. They started with the rats. So anxiety suppresses the prefrontal cortex's spontaneous neuron activity, and it weakens the encoding around our decision-making skills. The researchers from the University of Pittsburgh noted that two important observations as they monitored this rat activity. The first observation was that the presence of anxiety results in poor decision-making, especially when factors such as distractions or conflict are present. The second observation was that when poor decisions were made in a state of stress, it was related to specific prefrontal cortex neurons unclamping. Anxiety negatively impacts the neuron activity that supports your ability to make sound decisions. It's an actual physical response. So what does that mean for us, right? So if you're someone who experiences anxiety and often feels fear when faced with a decision, you have a lot of work to do. I'm sorry, but you do. Often the reason we feel so anxious or fearful when we're faced with decisions is that we don't want to make the wrong one. Right? I'm sure you can relate to that, right? Maybe we're so afraid of making the wrong decision that we're afraid of even making a decision at all, right? But when it comes down to it, you are the only one who can manage your own fear and anxiety. No one else can do it for you. So it's up to you to take the steps to manage your fear and anxiety to improve your ability to make those decisions. Hi, Jill. Good afternoon. So if you reduce your fear and anxiety overall, then you'll feel them less when it comes to decision making. So it's kind of like if you can reduce that anxiety like in your life, then when it comes to decision making, you won't feel it as much because you managed to get a handle on it, right? And so when you feel your life spinning out of control or you feel overwhelmed, it's even more important that you learn to manage that anxiety. And so when faced with distress, you're likely to increase anxiety by making poor decisions, which leads to more poor decisions, and then it becomes a vicious cycle. So while it might not feel like it, making sound decisions is absolutely within your control. Seriously, it's something you can do. You have the power to disrupt negative patterns of behavior by improving your decision-making skills. And yes, it's easier said than done, but it starts with anxiety management. So, as I've said before, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not talking about, what I'm talking about is the anxiety that we all feel from time to time. If you have a serious problem with this, please see a therapist who can help you through it. I am not that person. What I'm giving is general help for when you're feeling anxiety, right? But not if you're feeling it all the time, or if it's taking control of your life, you might need help. So think about that. But for most of us, it's a journey, you know. But I have a couple of ideas that can help. So the first one is just stop and breathe. Take a small time out and just breathe. Simply stopping and breathing can help restore a sense of personal balance, and it can bring you back to the present moment. That's really where you need to be, because you know what? Anxiety is usually comes from worrying about what if, right? What if? But anyway, so figure out what's bothering you. If when anxiety flares, take a time out and think about what it is that's making you so nervous. And like I said, it's typically a what if, right? So anxiety is typically experienced when you're worrying about a future or a past event. You're worried about what if this will happen, or what if that happens, or what if what happened before happens again, right? So to get to the bottom of your anxiety, put some time aside to exploring those thoughts and feelings. Try to figure out where they come from. Hi, Patty, good to see you. And then focus on what you can change. So many times anxiety stems from fearing things that haven't even happened yet, and they might not even occur, right? And I'm guilty. I am. We all are. We're all guilty of this, right? And life can be unpredictable, and no matter how hard you try, you can't always control what happens. But you can decide how you're going to deal with that, with the unknown, right? And you can turn your anxiety into a source of strength by letting go of fear and focusing on gratitude. Focus on something less anxiety provoking. Maybe at times it might be most helpful to just simply redirect yourself, to focus on something other than your anxiety for a little bit, right? So maybe you want to reach out to others, or do some work around your home, or engage in an enjoyable activity or a hobby. So maybe it might be, I need to make that decision, but I'm going to work in my yard, in my vegetable garden for a little while to calm myself before I make that decision. And while you're doing that, you can be running through your head the pros and cons, right, of that decision, but you're doing it more in a place of being centered, right? Just being right here centered. And then maybe just make the decision. I know it's scary, but just make the decision. There really is no right or wrong answer. There's no right or wrong decision. You make the decision based on the best information you have at the time. And so many times we learn something later that if we had known that before, we wouldn't have made that decision, right? But you make that decision based on the best information you have, and then you take the next step, whatever that is. And if something doesn't work, you just found out what doesn't work. And so you can make a new decision to change course. It really is that easy if you let it be. Okay, I make a decision. I'm going to go down this road instead of that road. Oh, I go down this road and, whoops, there's a roadblock. I can't do that. Well, guess what? Now I can make a decision to go back to the Y and go down the other road. It's really not rocket science. So it really is that easy if you let it be. In the meantime, though, give yourself a break and try to have compassion and love for yourself. Remember, it's a process, right? Hi, Anitra, good to see you. So we're always on a personal growth journey, and it doesn't happen all overnight. The key is as long as you're getting better every day, as long as you are growing and becoming better, that's what's most important, right? So now, hey, I'd love to hear from you. So what kinds of things help you when you're faced with anxiety or you're afraid to make a decision? What helps you get out of that fear and helps you make that decision and keep moving forward? Please share with us in the comments. I would love to hear your stories. Anyway, thank you. Erin and Jill and Patty and Anitra for being live with me today, and anyone else who might be live who just hasn't commented, and anyone who's watching the replay. I appreciate you. So go out there and have an amazing day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.